other in the audience, please try to refrain from that, because the speakers in the ceiling catch all your very whispery conversations, so it's kind of good if you just stay quiet. Thank you.
Chris, once you
Appreciate
start,
it.
can you close the door after?
Yep.
Please, thanks.
Recording in progress.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April 3rd, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Our first Selectman, Colin Mullen, invites the meeting to order. Everyone will join me in rising, stating the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we get started with public comment, due to the large number of people in attendance, and in order to keep this meeting moving in a timely manner, we kindly ask that the public comment be limited to 2 minutes. A reminder to please state your name and address for the record, and to wait until you're called on to speak. So at this point, I'll open up public comment, and we'll start in the room. Mr. Gilmartin, just state your name and address, please.
My name is Scott Gilmartin. I live at 759 Hale Street. And I want to offer the following comments relating to recent events pertaining to the Library Commission and Selectman Kathy Harrington. The effort by Sue Irwin to destroy the livelihood and career of Kathy Harrington is the most egregious and dirty political attack I can remember or am aware of in this town. Some may try to spin it otherwise, but Sue Irwin filed a complaint with Selectman Harrington's employer in retaliation for not voting to appoint her and/or others to the Library Commission. Irwin's allegations of using employers' time and equipment on town business during working hours were investigated and found to be false. I regret that Kathy was subjected to this and appreciate and thank her for her service to our town. Additionally, Sue Irwin filed FOIA requests to obtain the resumes of recent appointees to the Library Commission and made it known to them that she had obtained them. Her message in doing so was clear. Her tacit threat is despicable and outrageous. This behavior should be condemned by all, regardless of political affiliation. Any person who was aware of her intentions prior to is also complicit. How can Jim Irwin continue on the Library Commission after what has transpired? How can the Democratic Town Committee allow Sue Irwin to remain a member? I would encourage the Board of Selectmen to take any and all actions to defend elected and appointed officials from similar politically motivated attacks. Several actions worth considering, if appropriate, include whether there has been a violation of the town's code of ethics and whether the town attorney can issue a cease and desist for threatening town officials. You know, most of us view Suffield as a great place to live. Unfortunately, there exists a very small group of people both inside and outside the town that has pushed a contrary, divisive, and negative narrative. Unless we reject this type of behavior forcefully,
Mr. Gilmartin, you have 2 minutes.
we could regrettably spiral into the coarse incivility that divides other communities. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment in the room? Just raise your hand.
Ann Franzik, 31 Greendale Drive. I'm not speaking as a representative of any group. I'm speaking for myself, my family, and hopefully for the majority, albeit possibly silent or less vocal, citizens of Suffield. First of all, I have zero knowledge of the details referenced by Mr. Mole in his most recent First Selectman update published in the Observer. I'm referencing the increasing discord which has risen over the last several years in Suffield. So I'm commenting on the big picture. I have a gay son, which I've mentioned in this forum before, and as a gay man, he exists within a group that is often stigmatized, and of late, this bigotry is escalating, not infrequently being used for political gain. You may ask, why do I raise this at this time? Well, having a gay son opened up a whole new world to me, making me aware of all those groups of human beings who are often not valued, who are disrespected, misunderstood, those who are often do not enjoy the same rights as others. Being relatively new to town in 2020, I was impressed upon hearing of the number of people who had gathered on the green to memorialize George Floyd. It impressed me that so many people within Suffield cared so deeply about the murder of a black man. I heard that a small group of dedicated women had subsequently come together to work to help elevate the lives of those groups of folks who are so often looked down upon, misunderstood, forgotten, cast aside, and disregarded. I actually wrote a letter to the editor of the Observer at the time stating how thankful I was to move into a town which celebrated the lives of all people. These groups and those who advocate for them may represent unique interests and needs, but they are not fringe. Never once did I consider myself, my family, or my Suffield friends fringe. The definition of fringe is a group of people whose beliefs place them on the outskirts of the greater community. I don't believe that their beliefs place them on the fringe. If these people are on the outskirts, perhaps it is because of the lack of acceptance of them. We love to put people into boxes, don't we? We place labels, us versus them, conservative versus liberal, Republican versus Democrat, woke versus mainstream. None of these labels ever serve to help. They only divide. These disenfranchised people came together and come together because they are all ultimately working toward the same ends. That is, to be able to enjoy the same rights and to move within the world without fear. They are tired, sometimes exhausted, and wonder wherein lies the basis for others' fear of them. There can be strength in numbers, so they organize, not with the goal of dividing, but hopefully of being recognized. These individuals are human beings with the same rights and desires as all of us. To borrow Mr. Mole's words, they work long days, eat dinner, relax, and spend time with loved ones. There is no agenda here. There is no grooming. Just a flag to be proudly flown, books to be read, and events to be celebrated on our beautiful town green. When these wishes and hopes are not granted or even acknowledged, we find ourselves thinking, why the fear? It will be forever the million-dollar question. What are people afraid of? Let us please come together, truly listen, and engage in civil conversation. If nothing else, do this for our children who are surely watching and listening. Thank you.
Is there anybody else from local comment? Mr. Fernand?
Hello, Tom Frene, 489 Warnertown Road, also the chairman of the Democratic Town Committee. Two brief comments before the main comment I have. Thanks for the draft blight ordinance, including that with the agenda. I wish the agenda had been out earlier to give at least more than a day to look at the current version. But I'm glad you're sending it out when you send out the agendas for meetings. And second, thanks for starting the process of getting town email addresses for members of boards and commissions so they don't have to use their own personal email accounts. I think those are two good steps. Main thing I want to talk about relates to in the last 6 months, Suffield has had quite a few articles in the press about issues in town, and I'm worried about that. And I think partisanship is at the core of it, and partisanship comes from both sides, I'm sure. But I think we need to change that. And similar to what the first selectman said in his Observer article at the beginning and end, we're fundamentally in agreement with that. The middle part, we have some disagreement over. The Democratic Town Committee is not involved in the process of organizing every member's involvement in town affairs, and they're asking through freedom of information for documents or whatever. We don't control our members in that way. But we do support every person's right to ask for documents about the town. To learn about members of different boards and commissions, to ask questions about how decisions are made. And much of that is stuff that is, that's in state law, and we get to ask. And most of the time, I know you regularly get inquiries from both Democrats and Republicans to get information from the town, and that's a right that we strongly support.
Ready your 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Wrap it up.
I'll wrap it up. So board and commission members are our representatives, so that's why we like to be able to communicate with them, and that's why we should be able to continue to ask questions about them. And I know it's a difficult job being first selectman. I think it's been a little bit too partisan in the last few months. I encourage you to back off on that. And,
Wrap it up.
yeah. So understand critical input as comments from people who care about the town, not as a challenge to any board member. Thank you.
Thank you. Join up other public comment this morning.
Annie Hornish, 864 Thrall Avenue. And I offer this in the spirit of a critical comment, so please don't take it personally, Colin. The first selectman's column stated that Suffield citizens are creating false narratives, but it is Mr. Mole himself who is creating false narratives. This is not the first time, this is a pattern. He made the same accusation when dealing with the poorly written proposed town green policy. That was not a small number of people who opposed that. There were many in opposition, locally, statewide, and nationally, both progressives and conservatives. The argument was made on the merits, detailing how the proposed policy violated the First Amendment. By the way, I would like to commend Andy Sauer for his most recent Suffield Observations article that condemned the town green ordinance attempt. Mr. Mall also created a false narrative to distract from questionable actions of Selectman Harrington, and then it seems there was a coordination with RTC members to amplify that misinformation on social media. Apparently, Selectman Harrington used her work computer at the Connecticut Judicial Department to do town business. As a lawyer, she should have known better. Please, I'm sorry. But an even larger problem is that after her employer saw fit to investigate, the town record was altered. The agenda document was refiled on March 7, 2024, and altered in such a way that anyone looking it up would not see the words Connecticut Bar Examining Committee, author, State of Connecticut, in the document's properties. Why was that town record altered? What other town records have been or are being altered? Finally, Kent Memorial Library. For this board to want to censor books and to monitor who reads what books and who meets up with whom is government overreach. It's unkind for this board to alienate any members of our community. If you have doubts about the need to create a safe, inclusive place for every member of our community, all you need to do is listen to the continual stories of students being harassed and bullied in the Suffield school system.
Just wanted to correct
This
you.
abuse is not a false narrative. This is
Order,
a real
order, order.
world problem
Order.
that this board chronically fails to fix. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment?
Neil Hornish, Thurl Avenue. Reading the Selectmen's update from the April Observer, I was reminded of the old saying, believe nothing of what you hear and believe half of what you see. There's a lot to unpack in that article, much more than I can cover in 2 minutes, so I'll limit it to the following. First, the Selectmen's ominous comment that the person who requested the resumes now know where you work. please. The most simplest explanation for that is the person wanted the resumes to see what qualifications the newly appointed members had and what made them more qualified for the members of the commission. For the members of the commission who were kicked off by this committee, besides party affiliation, that is. Second, the question about the improper use of computers. The town of Suffield itself has a policy regarding the use of town computers for personal use. And I assume that the Connecticut Bar Department or whatever may have a similar policy. The town's policy that states that violation of that policy can lead to disciplinary action up to and including termination. These policies should be taken seriously in part because it can lead to security breaches. Therefore, it's entirely appropriate and proper to ask the question if using a state-issued computer to perform town business is acceptable. But another question is, I don't understand why Selectman Harrington was creating an agenda for the Library Commission. She's not a member of the commission, and you're not the appointed designee from the Board of Selectmen to the KNLC. With all the interest in new policies in the board has shown, it's noticeable that one you don't have is a whistleblower policy. Instead, when citizens question the appropriateness or the legality of the actions of the board, the new normal now is for this board to attack the individual, throw out misleading information, and leave it to others to go on social media to continue that attack.
You would know.
That's a poor way to govern. No citizen should feel intimidated to ask questions or comment on the actions of their town leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Mr. Reynolds?
Had to work my way by the officer. My name's Tim Reynolds, 56 Deepwood Harbor. I was on the board of selectmen from 2005 to 2021, 16 years. I worked with 4 of you folks, except for Colin. We always had a good rapport, I thought. Worked with Kathy, of course. Kathy's a person of integrity. She was always very analytical, and when it came time to vote on anything, whether it be appointments or anything at all, gave great thought, and I respect her for that. I was disgusted to see that she was in danger of losing her job because of a complaint filed by a person in town. The most important thing here is that she was found to have done nothing wrong, and that's very important. So I hope everybody hears that. And it's made clear that the state, who was independent of the town, found her to have done nothing wrong. And I hope the people who were complicit in this town activities at all. In those 16 years, I've never ran into anything anywhere near that complaint. Nowhere near it. Sure, people make comments about us, about them, about anybody else, but not putting somebody's livelihood, job, or anything other than that in danger. It's ridiculous. And my question is, what were they thinking? What were you thinking? And why would they do that? And get up in the morning and look in the mirror and ask if what you did was the right thing. That mirror will shatter. Thank you.
Yeah, there's your hand raised.
My turn?
Yeah.
All right, I've had enough. I've been doing this stuff for 35 years. I have never, ever, ever once got angry, mad, physically threatened anybody, psychologically took care of them, or went after their job. Ever done, as long as I was part of the RTC. As chairman, if I ever got wind of anybody pulling the stunts that you guys are pulling, then they would have been off. And as far as you two guys are concerned, how dare you get up here and start preaching to us when you got a dog that ripped apart a 92-year-old lady, and you don't even have the courage to put that dog down. And you're sticking the town with $100,000 to $150,000 for some moral high ground that you're taking. Baloney. I don't buy any of it. As far as you're concerned, I'm sorry your son's gay. Big deal. There's a lot of gay people out there. We're not picking on anybody. I'm not doing anything. I'm not a homophobe. I'm not a racist. I'm not anything. But I'm tired of you people accusing everybody of the things that you guys are actually violating. Those articles, Tommy, you're talking about were written by you, by your guys. Demeaning everything, the library, spending, spilling out all those lies. Then you go after Kathy. I have never done that. You two guys should resign immediately and do the right thing and show your good intentions. Nobody has ever done this as long as I was in this particular time. Now, we get into arguments, we fight with each other, I get that. But I have never done anything you have done, and anything else, because we still are citizens in this town. So do the right thing and resign, and you should crack down and take better control of your DTC.
Is there any other public comment in the room?
And apologize to this guy here
Mr.
who
Murphy.
resigned because
Time's up,
of
Mr.
your
Murphy.
actions. This is a good man.
Mr.
You
Murphy.
apologize to this guy because he resigned because of your actions. You should be ashamed
Mr.
of
Murphy,
yourself.
I'm ruling you out of order. Is there any other public comment in the room? Go ahead.
George Austin, 520 South Street. Where to begin? First and foremost, it is my intention to put my name forth for consideration for the vacancy on the Library Commission. And I find it prudent to mention I am a firm believer in Newton's third law of motion. Action, reaction, equal and opposite, all day. Second, I would love to see some of this bickering not be burdened, for us to not be burdening the record with some of this bickering. Some of this is necessary, some of it is not. That's why the term "take it outside in a nonviolent manner" exists, so that you can discuss it outside, please. Third, something that I was not here to speak on is the boxes. Is very aptly put, the boxes. Something that I'm sick and tired of is an ideology telling me that I can't get ahead unless I have help. That I cannot get ahead because of the past atrocities of the white American without the help of the current white American. That instead of equal opportunity, we'll have equal outcome. That the bar will be lowered for some and not for others. I'm quite frankly sick and tired of people looking at First Selectman Mull and seeing an Asian, some people looking at me, seeing a Hispanic, instead of just seeing two Americans. All this is inherently divisive, whilst claiming to not want to be divisive, putting people into boxes and only identifying them as anything but Americans is inherently divisive and does not engender patriotism and the advancement of prosperity in our nation, or society, or our state. That's it.
Is there anyone? I see a hand in the back. Mr. Davis.
Good evening, Jeff Davis, 8 Wisteria Lane. I've served on three elected positions on 3 different boards over the course of 19 years and have never seen such dirty politics before. Who would jeopardize someone's career over being unhappy about not being appointed to a volunteer position on the Library Commission? Sue Irwin's intimidation tactics has no place in Suffield and won't be tolerated. If we're up to me, she'd be banned from future Library Commission meetings. Jim Irwin should immediately resign. He's lost the public's trust. How can he be trusted to sit in on an executive session on that board? Democratic Town Committee released a statement recently, I think it was today, for the actions of, denied responsibility for the actions of any individual, and in the same sentence said they respect and support the rights of members to seek accountability. Is jeopardizing somebody's job, which you call accountability, seeking accountability. And my other question is regarding the Library Commission. Why are people so opposed to posting the events that are being held in the library, which is a public taxpayer-funded building? What events are being held there that you don't want people to know about? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment in the room?
Kevin Zeller, 23 Kings Meadow Lane. Today's my birthday, so I'm going to make this real quick, because I've got the party waiting for me. So I come here today, not for this, what they're arguing about, but it was been told to me, I went up to the landfill a couple weeks ago, and I met with Joe, and he was very kind, and I come with my company van, and my van has a mass license plate, because it's registered in West Springfield. And Joe came over to me, and he carded me, and I gave him my license, and he goes, "This is not gonna happen too much longer," because I think he recognized me from before. He says, "It's not gonna happen much longer because you have an out-of-state van, and it's a van which is 8,600 pounds, and you're gonna have to be, go over the scale." I said, "I'm just coming with a piece of furniture, and if I go back home with it, and my wife sees it's not gone, I'm gonna be in big trouble." So he let me throw it in the metal thing in the bin. But I'm hoping that I don't know if it's tonight, but I just want to know that I think you'd like to look over those ordinances with, if you have a plate from Massachusetts, I don't mind buying a sticker for the van. I have no problem with that. I don't care if you card me or whatever, because I have nothing to hide. But some of these laws that we can't use a out-of-town van to get rid of something at the landfill, please look into this more. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy your birthday. Is there, yeah, Mr. Malone?
Good evening, Brendan Malone, 104 3rd Street. There's not much I can add that hasn't already been said, but I just wanted to say, in the town of Suffield's ethics policy, Section 1, Paragraph A, it talks about this process must be free from threats, undue influence, and all forms of impropriety so that the confidence of the public is not eroded. I have been involved for a little over 10 years. I'm a former chairman of the RTC. I served on planning and zoning for almost 8 years. I have never seen an instance like this, echoing the statements of Mr. John Murphy. Kathy, I am incredibly sorry for what you have been through. And, you know, my heart goes out to you, and I just wanted to say, you know, this is, you know, the amount of people in this room is a testament to it should be, you know, noted as a statement that you know, this can't be tolerated. And I also wanted to say thank you to those who, from the Democratic Party, who have reached out. There has been a response from people who essentially have said, we don't associate with these people, what they're doing is wrong. And I wanted to publicly say thank you to those. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Blanca.
Claire Blanco, 288 North Main Street. For those who don't know me, I am one of the new library commissioners that was appointed at the end of last year. I just want to share a few thoughts. At the end of the day, I know me personally, I just want to serve the town. I joined the library commission to help the town, to help the library. I just want to do my job as a commissioner. I don't know who mentioned it here, but the whole resume request, FOIA request situation, someone mentioned it was for the purpose of looking at our backgrounds. However rare that is, I understand. I get it, you're allowed to do it. However, I'm still questioning what the intentions were with this person reaching out to commissioners. Somehow they have our personally identifiable information as a result of these resumes, which they should not have. So I am just coming out publicly to say, whoever has obtained my information from this request, you do not have permission to use it, share it. Please contact me on my commission email. That's what it's here for. Thank you to the board and the town for getting us emails as commissioners. And that's all. Thank you.
Is there any other, Mr. Gottlieb?
Time to move on. We're going to talk about the landfill policy that's on the agenda tonight. I had an opportunity to review, I believe, the new one that you sent out. And in my opinion, it still needs some work because the first sentence says, all residents seeking to use the landfill transfer station will be required to purchase a resident permit. I find that to be in direct conflict with the ordinance. I've asked for the ordinance to be updated. It's 25 to 30 years old. It goes back to pre-Selectman Frenet days when you came in and you had to buy, you had to buy or pay your permit here in Town Hall. The ordinance states, it's 286-4C, number 1, no permit fee is required for residents qualified to access the bulky waste section of the landfill. The ordinance says you do not have to pay a fee to use the bulky waste section. Your policy says you do. In my opinion, the ordinance takes precedence, and you cannot do that unless you change the ordinance. Now, I'm in total agreement that everyone going up there ought to pay the $25. And I'm certainly willing to do that. But for you to ignore the ordinance that says you can't do that is not appropriate. And I think we all need to follow the laws that we committed to. And I do recommend changing the ordinance. Again. The second item is, I believe it also violates a Connecticut General State Statute for e-waste, 22A-631 and 635. Basically says you cannot charge any fee to get rid of e-waste, electronic waste. And so the quote is 22A-635B, no Connecticut resident giving 7 or fewer covered electronic devices to a collector at any one time shall be charged any fees or costs for the collection, transportation, or recycling. I'm up to my 2 minutes already? Okay, well, I'll do this real quick. You're in violation, in my opinion, of the state law and of the ordinance, and I will forward you a letter more in detail so you can all get that. The other thing is that if you do get rid of, certify that you're not doing curbside, as long as you had your bins, USA Hauling is going to charge whether you use them or not. So the town should notify them that they're not being used, and so we don't keep getting charged. The last thing is that they've changed their contract. Some people have multiple bins. It used to be USA charged for the household. Now they charge per bin. So those people that have more than one bin, we're paying for those, and I believe they ought to pay for them on their own dime. Thank you, and I'll forward you the details.
Is there any other public comment in the room?
Thank you, Colin. Paul Christian, 281 Hill Street. Just want to say, Kathy, I'm sorry for what you had to go through, for what I hear. I also want to say that I'm chair of the Fire Commission, and Kathy is the select woman that's assigned to our commission. Kathy has been very professional. Her integrity and her foresight that she brings with her and comes to commission meetings has helped us and has had us look at things differently, or things that we didn't see. So I just want to say, Kathy, thank you for all you do, and the Fire Commission really values you when you attend our meetings. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment in the room? Ms. Walker?
Kathy Belanco, 981 East Street North. Sue Irwin, you should be ashamed of what you did to Kathy. I have never seen anyone go over minutes like you do and make sure every line is dotted and crossed and whatever. You are so thorough, and I'm so impressed with you. Sue, you should be embarrassed.
100%.
You should be embarrassed. Jim, I saw you vote yesterday when they wanted to table the vote. And your hand goes up. Abstain? I abstain. Did you think, oh, my wife would want me to abstain? Why? What was your vote yesterday? You should leave the Library Commission. No one's going to feel comfortable talking in front of you, because where does this go? Right to her. She should be ashamed of herself.
100%.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment in the room? Mr. Harrington?
Eric Harrington, 700 North Street. I'd like to thank everyone who showed up tonight to support Kathy. I'd also like to thank all the people who have reached out to her over the past week. I know it means a lot to her. I also want people to know that Kathy had to spend dozens of hours addressing this false claim and had to use multiple days of PTO to formally respond to the allegation. So not only did she suffer emotionally from the ordeal, but she suffered financially. Next, I want to discuss the Facebook statement issued today by the Suffield Democratic Town Committee. It's total garbage. They state that, quote, elected officials should expect that when they do not follow the rules, they will be called to task, end quote. But Kathy broke no rules. Their position is that making false, politically motivated allegations with an unpaid volunteer's employer is, quote, democracy in action, end quote. Interestingly, they also at the same time take the position that the DTC, quote, cannot rightfully be held responsible for the actions of any individual, end quote. So in layman's terms, the DTC's position is that its members are free to throw crap 24/7, but none of that crap is allowed to blow back on them. That is not how it works. Finally, I want people to know the Library Commission meets the second Tuesday of every month in this room. The next meeting is Tuesday, April 9 at 7 p.m. As you've heard tonight, the Irwins and others have treated the new Library Commission members very badly over the last 4 months. Most of them have never served on town boards before and were not prepared for this nasty behavior. They deserve our support. I'll be attending those meetings going forward. I hope everybody in this room does as well.
We will.
And Neil Hornish, that's a good question. How could Kathy have done a Library Commission agenda in 2023? Sue Irwin should have asked that question before she did what she did. That's a good question. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment in the room before I move to Zoom? All right, I see none. I'm moving to Zoom. Is there any public comment on Zoom? If you could hit the hand raise button, please. All right, anyone else on Zoom before we move on? Sorry. Moving on. Item number 3, approval of the minutes from the February 29th, 2024 special meeting of Board of Selectmen.
This is Kathy Harrington. I move that they be adopted as drafted with just one change. On page 4, the last paragraph, line 6 should read just that Selectman Harrington supports this request because, and I continue the sentence.
All right, the motion has been made. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 4 is approval of the minutes from the March 6th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Kathy Harrington, I move that they be adopted as drafted.
All right, the motion has been made. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 5 is approval of the minutes from the March 20th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
So this is Kathy Harrington. I move that they be adopted as drafted, but I'm wondering, wasn't also Glenn Gazdick, the Board of Ed, a member, wasn't he there for at least a portion?
He was there
He
from the
was there,
beginning.
but as
He-
I think he came as a public.
yeah.
Okay, so then I just, I motion that they be adopted as drafted.
All right, motion has been made. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 6 is discussion and approval to accept e-ticket grant for Police Department and refer to Board of Finance. You guys received a memo and a grant application from Chief Cannon last week in regards to a grant we can accept to obtain e-ticket printers. As it is a reimbursable grant, Chief is requesting that we approve accepting this. I invite Chief Cannon and Captain Plummer to the front to further discuss and answer any questions you guys may have. Thanks, guys, for coming out today.
Thank you for your time. So with respect to the e-ticket grant, just to further elaborate on the memo, the state's making a push to make everything electronic. In the very near future, the system is already up and running in most agencies, state agencies, or well on their way. With that, one of those areas is the Central Infraction Bureau with respect to where the back end of a written ticket goes. Currently, I think as of December, we've been asked to, when we write an infraction, go back, scan it in, and email it over to them. It's just, you know, the state's way of pushing toward the e-ticket printers. Having said that, we started the grant process mid-summer with the intent of applying. They asked us to hold off until the federal fiscal year, so we did that. And we ultimately got the application in and we were awarded the grant as of February. So essentially, it will cover the entirety of the costs. Again, I think this is gonna eventually be a state mandate type thing, where they're gonna force all agencies to go to it, an electronic system of some sort. And while the grant's available, we're asking for the ability to spend the funds and get it reimbursed. We're looking at approximately a 4 to 6 week lead time with respect to the equipment. The equipment will be placed in the vehicles by our own people. However, this would cover all costs related to it. And we should see a relatively quick turnaround. The state's been pretty good with those funds.
Awesome, thanks, Chief. Anyone have any questions for Chief?
I just said, you answered one, which was that the 18,000 plus would be for all of them, to outfit all the vehicles we have. Do you have any idea of like an estimated annual cost thereafter?
So there is a maintenance fee in there. It's crossed out. I think it's 2,500 a year.
2,500 per year?
For the year. And it's basically, it is the maintenance on the crossover, the patch over from our CAD RMS system. So it's integrated to that and then shoots off to state agency.
That's all I have.
What does e-ticket cover? What?
E-tickets will cover a variety of things, infractions, written warnings, misdemeanor summonses, accident information summaries. So if you're involved in a motor vehicle accident, we can simply put the information into our MDT in the car, print it out, and just hand them a document with the operator information, location, case number, all that type of stuff.
They both took both my questions, but my third question is, where does it go? Because those cruises are pretty cramped in the front. Does it go in the front seat?
It'll go behind the passenger seat in the front.
Passenger seat. What if you have someone in custody? Stays in the back there with them?
No, I'm sorry. It'll be accessible from the front. Obviously, they'll hit print and they can just grab it and hand it. There's cages in the car, so if somebody's in custody, they're in a cage. They're not going to be able to access this.
Okay.
With trying not to get myself in trouble with the police, having read many reports over the years as a member of Juvenile Review Board, they're not always edible to edible. They're not readable. The spelling sometimes, so this would make things a lot easier for everybody. I can remember us having many discussions trying to figure out what the officer was trying to say in his report, so.
Absolutely. And as far as fees and fines, those are automatically done and calculated within the system itself as well. So wouldn't have any of those, it would eliminate some of those errors.
Jerry, you have anything? Any other questions? Concerns?
I make a motion that we approve the acceptance of the e-ticket grant for the police department and refer it to the Board of Finance.
Okay, the motion has been made. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thanks,
Sure.
Jeremy.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, item number 7 is
Thank you.
Item number 7 is discussion and approval of amendments to the landfill policy. Last month, DPW Director Lee Corbett gave an edited draft landfill policy version from what we had discussed late last year. You guys had a few recommendations for edits. We also let you know that because there's so much work left to be done on the policy, we have to push the start date back to the beginning of the new fiscal year. So Lee, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight, and if you guys have any questions, please here to entertain.
I just had one, paragraphs 13 and 14, there was just a redundant sentence in each one. And so I was thinking for paragraph 13, if you deleted the third sentence that says the landfill will be closed on certain days, because then paragraph 14 is where you talk about it's closed on certain days, and then delete that last sentence.
Yeah, the final version after
Yep.
the last time I combined the two.
So, but then it is still,
Okay.
it's in both. So I was just thinking we only need it one place. So that way, paragraph 14 would just be one sentence long about it being closed, the days that it's closed. Yeah, that's my only issue, otherwise I thought you did a great job. So the public comment that was earlier, I see under paragraph 8, we have an exception that if there's a vehicle, if your only vehicle is commercial car or small SUV, they can still get a permit by showing the licensure. Could you address his question about, I think he had a larger van?
I
Is
think
the
that was
issue?
Mr. Gautier's
No,
comment.
No, Mr. Zeller.
Oh, Mr.
Yeah.
Zeller,
Oh, that's right,
sorry,
sorry.
okay. So actually, Mr. Zeller had called me and I spoke with him on the phone about this. So his issue was that he only has a commercial vehicle and his vehicle is registered to his business in West Springfield, Mass, I believe it is. So he was concerned that he was now going to have to, because of the size of the van, buy the permit and also go over the scale to pay. So I understand his concern, but we have a lot of issues at the landfill with people coming in with out-of-state plates, with different sized vehicles, some large vehicles, and dumping for free, which then in turn costs all the taxpayers of this town money. So I tried to find a compromise with this where we can, I actually used the IRS code for write-offs for a 6,000-pound vehicle, and said anything under that weight would be able to get the permit as long as you have a Suffield license. Anything above that, we're gonna consider a commercial vehicle and unfortunately, not allow that to go through without having to pay. Again, this was just a way I was trying to find a compromise to, I don't think there's a way to stop all of that from happening out there. But I also received a picture and text message from Joe Duvall, who's our lead man up at the landfill. He had a gentleman, one gentleman in particular, but I guess there's multiple, that comes up with a pickup truck and a single axle trailer. So as the rules sit right now, a single axle trailer does not have to go over the scale. And so he doesn't have to go over the scale, but he's posting on his Facebook page. Joe sent me a picture of it, that he does dump runs and cleanouts for people. And he's going up there 2 to 3 times a week. And it's very clear to anybody that this gentleman is making money bringing this stuff up to our landfill. He's just finding a loophole. So I'm trying to close that loophole the best I can to protect the taxpayers of this town. But I'm leaving it up to you to decide if that's the best route to go or if you want to make some changes to that. I don't see a way to stop it 100%. I think this is a compromise that will fit most people.
Thank you.
Just the last example you just mentioned, is that someone who lives in town?
That is somebody who actually resides in town.
Did you see that a lot, okay.
He sees
Or
it
enough.
He sees it enough where it's been an issue over the years for him. It just happened that this particular gentleman has been a real abuser of the system.
So as of now, they can just keep going.
There's nothing
Without
we can do to
recourse.
stop it.
There's some comments made by some more public comment. Is that something you can speak on, or we need to do a little more research?
Yeah, I did pull it up quickly. The definition of a covered electronic device under the statute is fairly convoluted. So while I attempted to get a quick answer to you on it, I would not, I think it does warrant some additional consideration. So my first blush, I think we might be okay, but I'd like to spend a little bit of time on that. So my recommendation would be to table it to the next meeting, and I'll get an answer and powwow with Lee on this at some point. So,
How about the other, Mr. Gautier had a couple other points about inconsistency with the ordinance.
He's right. I mean, the ordinance needs to supersede, the ordinance supersedes the whatever policies adopted, so they should work in conjunction with each other. I thought we had addressed that with the first version of the policy, so I'm not entirely sure which part he was referring to, but
Bulky waste, in the ordinance says no charge, and then in the new policy says $25.
yeah, so I'll double check that part.
Can I just ask you, Lee, in regards to the gentleman who spoke regarding him coming up as a private, lives in town, but has a commercial vehicle that he brings, is there, and like in this case, he said he brought a chair of some sort, is there any way to help people like that?
I think we could leave it up to the landfill employees on a case-by-case basis, which would still, again, be a little tricky, because someone could say, well, you did it for this person, why aren't you doing it for me? But, I mean, we're almost talking about common sense type of stuff. You know, if the guy was coming in with 15 pieces of furniture, you know, he's abusing the system. If he happens to come up once every 3 months with something, maybe leave it up to the landfill employees to decide on a case-by-case basis. I don't, again, Derek, you'd have to answer that legally if that was down up for some kind of a lawsuit by somebody, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think that gets into, it might run us into some trouble, but I think there might be, just as sort of the discussion's been going on and kicking around some language, I think we might be able to find a way to do this in such a way that balances out people's interests. You know, it's, again, you know, having these conversations about these policies over multiple occasions is very helpful, because it does bring up scenarios like that, which is not something we contemplated, right? So when we originally met with Joe and Chris Matichak, I mean, probably back last fall, I mean, you know, the real concern was, how do we stop the chronic abusers, the guys who they see up there every day, you know, who are making money and disposing of people's stuff. So, you know, it's going to be you know, a little bit of a balancing act, but let me take a stab at it, and we'll see where we can go from there.
On that point, just on paragraph 8, so when you're reading the different bullet points together, tell me if I'm wrong or not, but it does talk about showing a Connecticut driver's license with the town address, or a valid DMV registration with the town address. So you could have, because then combine that with the third bullet, a small SUV that's registered to your company with a Massachusetts plate, but you have a Connecticut license and you show your Suffield address, you could still use the landfill and buy a permit, correct?
But then you get into the scenario that Lee was talking about. You come in with a vehicle that's over.
No, exactly, the size, but if
Right.
it fit within these two, we
Yes.
could. The gentleman brought up his, it's just that his vehicle's too large, so we're gonna see if there's anything we could do there. Okay.
And originally, believe it or not, the concern was the opposite, right? We were worried about penalizing a business owner who might not live in town or in state, right? Who's entitled to use the landfill because they're a property owner or a business owner in town, right?
Yeah.
So we were looking at it from that angle and not the other one when we originally.
So we'll see what, if anything, we can do.
Yep.
So I'd make a motion that we I'm sorry, do you have any more comments?
Did anyone else have any?
Then I'd make a motion that we table number 7.
Motion has been made. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Lee, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for all your time tonight,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Good night, Lee.
All right, item number 8 is discussion and reappointment of Susan Main, Anita Wardell, Todd Levish, Joyce Ann, Connie Murray, and Judith Hamner to the Helen and Bailey Spencer Tree Fund Committee through March 31st, 2025.
So moved.
Motion has been made. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 9 is discussion of procedure for resume requests for candidate board and commission openings. So right before I started, resumes were requested for residents who were interested in joining a board or commission. I kept that going as it seemed like a reasonable idea to better understand who this board would be putting onto a board or commission. However, in light of recent events, we did have a FOIA request for resumes for all people that requested to be on a certain commission. Because it didn't involve employees but rather volunteers, these resumes were subject to be shared through that request. While the motivation for this request may still somewhat be unknown, I find it extremely concerning in the way these resumes may be weaponized and used against volunteer residents. I think it's this board's job to protect residents from any potentially harmful behavior and actions. And in my opinion, I don't see how we continue to move forward with these requests for resumes. So I would personally not put anybody's job at risk because of somebody else's personal vendetta. So I'd like to hear what everyone else's thoughts are moving forward as we continuously get openings for boards and commissions. Derek, you want to speak real quickly on the resume part for the FOIA?
Sure. So there are certain exemptions to sharing resumes under an FOI request for employees for a position while that position is open and people are being interviewed for. So you think logically that makes sense, right? You don't want your resume out there and your employer knowing that you're looking for another job, right? And that's really what it comes down to. So here we have something different. We have people applying for appointed positions, right? You're considering their qualifications for appointed positions. And those materials are part of your board packet, right? That you are reviewing and considering beforehand. So all of those things become available under FOI, under an FOI request. There's some confusion about things like redactions and personal information, and just so we're clear on that, there are very few exceptions under FOIA for what is exempt from FOI. So it's personal records, medical records, in 1-210B2 and B in subsection 8, it's information related to personal net worth, and victims of a crime under 27. We've got some other examples under union contracts related to employee personnel and medical records under 1-2114, and under 1-219 there's certain exemptions related to veterans information. When someone gets out of the military, a lot of times the town clerk gets a copy of their discharge paperwork. We've heard that before with respect to people getting onto the various monuments that we have and what's reviewed there. So certain aspects of those can be redacted. Additionally, we have taken the position, although it's not under, specifically under FOIA, but it's sort of generally accepted, and there are some opinions by the Freedom of Information Commission that support this. We have, in the past, redacted information that is deemed to be personally identifying information. And that's the same standard that we've used, that the court has used with respect to that. So we're talking about individuals' social security number, mother's maiden name, motor vehicle operator's license, other government-issued identification number, and there's some exceptions to that, financial account numbers, security codes, PIN numbers, things like that, right? that are sort of generally accepted as being allowed to be redacted, and there's a variety of different Freedom of Information Commission rulings on that, but it's not in the statute, okay? So, if someone does request a resume, and that resume was considered by the board, unless somebody put their motor vehicles operating license on that, and, you know, I've seen that happen before on a CDL driver resume, for instance. Generally speaking, what's on there, people's email address, their phone number, their address, all of that stuff is available publicly. And, you know, I will tell you that when you sign up for a listserv that the town might run, all of that information, you plug your email address in so you can get, you know, minutes emailed to you or whatever, all of that is available under FOI. So all of those interactions with the town does put that information at risk, if that's not something that you're interested in getting at. You know, voting record, not the record of your registration, things like that, those are all available publicly. So, you know, there is not when we talk about resumes, if you're concerned about resumes, there is not a way to protect them other than you considering how to do it, and how to get that information up front. In the past, you know, whether it's resumes, other towns do resumes, other towns have a specific board application that people fill out that gets the information that they want specific to a particular board. That's another direction you can go, but there's not a lot of great options here because, you know, frankly, you know, once something gets into your board packet, you know, it is by and large available to the public with very limited exceptions.
Okay, so, you know, obviously what we're talking about here is the person who filed a complaint with Kathy's employer secured the resumes of the folks on the Library Commission and then notified the chair of the commission that she had requested those resumes. And of course, ultimately, the folks on the Library Commission are aware that the person who filed a complaint with Kathy's employer seeking at a minimum disciplinary measures, if not termination of Kathy's employment, now has their resumes and has let them know that she has that information. Now, I thought it would not be possible that any person could endorse the action by this person. And then I saw this statement by the Suffield Democrats today, which has been the subject of some comment, but I think is worthy of further comment. So first, they say elected officials should expect that when they do not follow the rules, they will be called to task. I'm going to return to that. The middle paragraph is the sort of verbal linguistics that people engage in when they're speaking out both sides of their mouth. It says, whereas the DTC cannot rightfully be held responsible for the actions of any individual, comma, we respect and support the rights of each of our members to seek accountability in our elected officials as they see fit. So in the first half,
How does this relate to, well,
excuse me,
you're
I have the
talking about
floor.
I understand, but you're not talking about the issue.
I certainly am. So in the first, if you don't think this is related, then I don't think you're listening. The first half of this sentence says, the DTC has no responsibility for any conduct of their members. And then the second half of this statement is, we encourage folks to take any action they see fit. And of course, this whole conversation is about a person trying to get someone fired from their job because of a political disagreement. All right, and then the final paragraph is the first selectman suggests that the actions of elected officials are somehow above the rules, and that even being questioned about compliance with these rules constitutes an unfair personal attack rather than democracy in action. So it's the position of the Democratic Town Committee that trying to get someone you disagree with politically fired from their job is democracy in action. I have to wonder, before the DTC put that statement out, did they happen to reach out to the Democrats on who are elected and appointed members of boards and commissions in this town to see, are they on board with this approach? That if you have a political disagreement with someone, it's legitimate to try and get that person fired. With respect to that first statement, Selectman Hill, you were the person who said that Jim Irwin was the best man for the job to be on the Library Commission. The statement reads, elected officials should expect that when they do not follow the rules, they will be called to task. So what rule did Kathy Harrington break that she should lose her job over?
Is that the issue on the table, discussion of whether we see resumes?
I don't understand how you can think that this is not related, when the whole
Because-
thing is, the person...
Well, I'm speaking now.
You're interrupting me, okay?
No,
The
you
person,
stop.
excuse me, the person, this entire issue arises out of a person who filed a complaint with Kathy's employer seeking disciplinary action against her, possibly termination. That person has the resumes of the folks on the Library Commission and has let them know that she has those resumes. And those folks know that she's the person who filed this complaint. If you don't see how this is relevant, I just can't help you.
I guess you can't help me though. My question to you.
I actually have a pending question.
I'm
to-
speaking now.
Excuse
You
me,
need
I
to
have a
let- no,
pending question
You
to
asked me a
Selectman Hill.
question.
Finish
You need to
Jay's
let me
question,
finish.
and we'll move on now. Selectman Hill, do you have anything for?
I believe Jim Irwin was the right person for the job, looking at his resume that he provided.
But my question is, what rule did Kathy Harrington break that makes it legitimate to try and seek her termination from her job?
Why are you asking me that question?
Because you and Mel are the highest ranking elected officials from the party that is taking this position. This is the position of your party.
What is that? We're Democrats, but we didn't formulate, or maybe Mel did, I didn't formulate that message.
Do you support the actions?
I thought we were here to talk about whether resumes should be collected or not, and what the problems are for collecting them.
Well, this is
So
clearly what the problem is.
Could I finish, please?
Well, why don't you tell us?
Well, let me finish. Justin, Derek, my question is, if we were to get resumes and destroy them after a meeting, does that still make them susceptible to FOI?
Yeah, it is a good question. You cannot destroy a public document without permission from the state library.
Okay, so you can't do that.
But the state library puts out retention schedules, and here's what's interesting. A meeting packet is not subject to the same retention schedule as other public documents. So you file something in the town clerk's office, depending on the type of document it is, minutes are kept forever, right? But the agendas only have to be kept, I think, for 5 years under the retention schedule. You just have to ask for permission to destroy them. The meeting packets, of which the resumes would be a part of, do not have a set schedule that has been published by the library. You would just have to request, following a meeting, that you can destroy them beforehand. Resumes for people who are hired fall under, they have to be kept for a significantly long period of time. There is no information that I could find in the retention schedule about how long resumes for appointed position need to be retained. So if that is an area that you would like, you know, I think we would need guidance from the state law library, or the state library, in order to determine exactly how long we'd have to keep them. And there's an application process for that. They rule on it and tell you.
I have to agree that collecting the resumes is helpful because a lot of people who come forward for different commissions have no idea who they are. So if we don't have any background, we have no idea how to proceed with them.
I have
We have to defer to whoever recommended them. But so the question of destroying the document after we got it would have to be approved by.
Yeah, and it would have to be approved, as I
So it
understand.
complicates it.
And as I understand it, it would have to be approved each time. You know, so literally like following the meeting, someone would reach out to the library and get permission. It's not a blanket thing permission that can be granted.
So I have a suggestion. I mean, my suggestion coming into this was that we make residents and volunteers aware that we cannot protect a resume if they provide it and they're interested in a position, and they can opt out of providing it and instead could provide us with a letter or an email detailing their interest and their qualifications. You know, let them know that that also would most likely have to fall under FOI, right, Derek?
It would.
Exactly, and that way it could be up to them and we could still get the critical information that we needed. I feel like giving the residents the option.
How do you see that different from a resume?
Because some people might write up in the letter, like I've worked, instead of saying the exact employer and their dates and where they went to school, they may say, oh, I have an advanced degree in aero engineering and, you know, I've worked in this field for 20 years and I manage so many people. Actually, that might be more helpful, right? Like, 'cause they could really showcase for you.
We got some of those letters.
And if they wanted to, they could actually hand it in to the first selectman's office. That way, their email wouldn't be FOIable. They could just hand it in.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Received by.
Email falls under a separate section of the
Right.
code, so the email and the attachments have a separate retention schedule that's distinct from the meeting packet.
Some people on their letterhead may include an email, personal email, so if we let them know that the resume and/or any other submission, the entire document would be disclosable, they can choose to leave that off if they want. I think giving residents the information, letting them choose is a good middle ground.
So we could put together a form letter, could send it out to anybody who applies or is interested in X. Just send them a letter and say, these are the rules if you're going to give us a resume.
Maybe we post it online when we are, don't we put up like the job, I'm sorry, the vacancies? I personally think by putting it on the website and give people that information is a good idea.
And probably let both town chairs know that going forward, if someone emails, it's gonna be FOIable, just so that they know, maybe there could be an intermediary there.
I do have a compliment to make though. Now we have, for commission members, you have a town email that they can use if you want to communicate with somebody on a commission. Am I correct about that, Colin?
They haven't all rolled out yet, though.
No, we did the ones with the most, that have the most work and people
I'm sorry?
involved. Yeah, we did, for most of them. But to go back to Jerry's comments, he's bringing it up because we're only discussing this because of these actions. Otherwise, we wouldn't be discussing this. I mean, that's what he's bringing up. It is relevant.
Right, we're having a discussion about whether we should have people provide resumes and information. And I think it's legitimate to ask you folks, do you endorse folks using that information against them to seek disciplinary measures against the person where they work simply because you disagree with the person politically? I mean, if you choose, if you don't take any position on that, I guess that speaks volumes. I mean, if you refuse to disavow that, then essentially you're endorsing it.
I feel like I'm in a court of law.
I'm not in favor of moving forward with resumes regardless of what we do. I'm gonna protect our residents from people weaponizing these and using it against them.
Well, right, the position of the Democratic Party is clear, so I don't see how we can do it.
unless they choose to. But to Kathy's point, if someone wants to submit a resume, we're not gonna tell them no, right?
No, I think that
Some
a
people.
person if a person's gonna submit a resume, and under conditions where the information on that resume can be used against them, I think they're gonna have to be alerted to the dangers involved, which would be, please understand that political adversaries, there's a party in town, one of the major parties, that has taken the position that they're gonna use employment information to try and get you fired or disciplined at work if they disagree with you politically. I mean, you'd have to have that sort of notification to the person so they can make a knowing decision about whether they're gonna provide that information.
I get volunteers that send me the resume with their interest email.
Well, I mean, Kathy raised a good compromise.
I thought so. I think it's a good compromise.
I just point out there is on the website now, I thought, I double checked because there used to be a page, but the website gets updated regularly. There is a section that says, I want to, right? And they have, find applications, forms, and permits, or volunteer. So there are places to put information out there. And could easily be in sections where people interact with the website. I would just be very careful that if you're going to put information on there, that you do it in a very generic and not a generic way, so that it does not appear that you are targeting anything in particular. Again, whatever language would go up there is going to be subject to a rational basis test, where it's going to be analyzed against what the legitimate government concern was. So we need to be very careful about the language that would go on the website, and frankly, the intent.
I'm for Kathy's suggestion, but I just wanted to put out that I'm disappointed that we're gonna have this discussion.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm for Kathy's suggestion, I'm just saying I'm very disappointed we're gonna have to have this conversation.
Well, the last thing I want to note is, so Mr. Harrington, Eric Harrington, spoke previously about some of the effects on Kathy that this complaint and conduct had. I just want to point out that the harm continues. We have, even though the allegations were investigated, they were found to be completely unsubstantiated, we have people tonight making statements describing the questionable conduct of Selectman Harrington, making statements about, well, why was she preparing the library commission agenda, which of course she was not. Okay, so it continues.
Which, by the way, I think I prepared that library agenda to assist the library commission on that date. That was, I guess,
One of
cited.
the three.
Yeah,
One of the three that was alleged, that's true.
so.
So all the question needed to be asked was the town. I think my husband asked a very good question, which was, Mr. Ornish, why did you do it? I didn't. The three that were sent to my employer and identified Ms. Irwin were all from December of 2023, none of which did I produce. None of which did I have a hand in making. The document properties did show something. All that had to be done was to ask the town and inquire. Instead of finding out facts, made a false allegation that I was using. It was a false allegation. If you'd like, I'll read it into the record, Mr. Irwin. And the Hornishes who laugh when Jerry says that I could have lost my job. Now, Ms. Irwin didn't ask that I lose my job and didn't ask for discipline. But when you file a complaint making allegations of engaging in political activity on state time using a state computer, what do you think the ramifications might be of that? Do you think oh, maybe they'll give her a raise. No, the ramifications are possible discipline. All 3 of those were from December of 2023, and I had no hand in it. I hadn't been on that commission for over 4 years. I was not the liaison to that commission. And the allegation also then referred back to 2019, which was when I was on that commission, before I was elected. These 3 were specifically targeted because I was an elected official at the time, and it would have been political activity, and I would have been in trouble. What really happened was that over 10 years ago, I used one agenda that I created when I was still just a volunteer for the town. I was not an elected official. And I used it as a template because I offered Bob Brooks to draft his agendas for him out of the kindness of my heart, because I wasn't even an officer on the library commission. And I created that at home. I used it and sent it home. And from that point forward, I used the same template. I had no idea that the document properties would carry forward, okay? That's all that happened. And that Word document was sent to every single member of the Library Commission when the agenda was ready. And so they used it after I was even on there. That's how Colin, when he created one of them from December of 2023, it still had that document property. If I had known at the time that this would carry forward for years, I would never even have done it the one time, okay? But my employer found that these were all unsubstantiated, and I was cleared. And yet people come here and say, she did this on state time, she did that. No, I didn't. And all you needed to do, Mr. and Mrs. Irwin, was ask the question of the town. Why does this appear on the website? You would have had your reason, and you would have known you were wrong, but you didn't. You knew exactly what you were doing. I take no pleasure in being the attention here. I actually hate this. I hate it. I just want to do my job as an elected official and help the residents. That's what I enjoy doing, okay? But I agreed to have my name out there and put this out there because I thought it was that important that every single person in this town know what happened. Hopefully, to reach some people to think twice. I'm very disappointed in the statement by the DTC. I really hoped to reach out. And I think I've reached some people, but not everybody. And we're not going to reach everybody. And that's all I have to say about that.
Right now.
Order.
Apology now.
Order.
Public
Order.
apology right now.
Public
apology. Public apology.
You two Democrats on the board, apology, let's go.
Kathy, I just want to thank you for all your work you've done. I'm sorry you had to go through this. You know, this is what has led to this conversation. So I guess we're not going to move forward with resumes. Moving forward, I'm not sure if we're going to move forward with letters of intent or what you guys want to do. But I like decisions. I've really got openings coming up, so I need to be able to know what I'm telling potential candidates.
What? Sorry,
Go ahead.
I think Kathy's point of just a letter of interest of, you know, I worked in aerospace for 20 years. I worked, you know, here, there, whatever. Here are my interests. Here's my volunteer work. Here's what I like to do, and just something doesn't have to be obviously generic, you know. And then if they want to hand it in, that way their email's private, and you know, we need something. You know, you can't appoint people by their height or, you know.
All right, quick description then. That'll suffice for now.
Yep.
I have one suggestion that we haven't brought up. What about if the candidate came here and just gave us a quick rundown? Nothing said. Does that have to go into the minutes?
I don't want anyone following them home or anything, so I'll pass it.
I'm sorry?
I don't want anyone from your party following them home or anything, so I'll pass it. Yeah, that's not happening.
Come on.
That's not happening.
Colin, it's going a little bit.
No, it's not. No, it's
It is.
not at
It
all.
is.
Not when you go after people's jobs.
Let's stick to the issue.
Not when you
The
go after
issue
people's
is
jobs,
resumes.
no.
I've
Just
given
remember
you a
there's people on the other
suggestion.
side too that have jobs, so.
Colin,
Anyone
I'm
else
giving a
have any-
suggestion
Okay.
about how we could do it, and I'm asking our council. if someone comes here and speaks about the background, it has to go in the minutes, does that become,
So
is
an
that a way
interesting-
around this?
Interesting point. So we go much farther in our minutes in town than is required by the law. So the only thing that's required in the minutes is the, who was there, what they voted on, and who voted for what. I mean, it's really very, very basic. We go to great lengths to produce minutes that have much more detail in that, and that's probably a very good thing. But, you know, if you had someone in here, theoretically, you could summarize in the minutes, you know, Derek Donnelly came before the board and spoke about his qualifications. That would be sufficient under FL.
Although the meetings are recorded.
Yeah. Right, public, yeah, that's a good point.
We'll stick with the letters of intent for now. All right, moving on.
So
Item-
we're not taking a motion on this, we're not gonna do anything?
I think it's just procedure.
It's just procedure, yeah.
It's just procedure.
Okay.
Item number 10 is discussion of charter revision. So I'm bringing up the topic of charter revision because I'd like this board to consider forming a new charter revision commission to charge them with making changes to elected officials who work for the town. The positions for consideration would include town clerk, tax collector, and first selectman. Having been here now for over 2 years, I am of the strong opinion that there should be no paid elected positions that do work for the town. Currently, we're fortunate to have our town clerk and tax collector positions being filled by 2 dedicated residents. However, the positions won't be filled by the 2 current residents forever. And it's my belief the positions need more accountability and a hiring process that should be done to get the most qualified person. I also think that the position I'm currently in as first selectman would be better off with the town manager position for some of the same reasons I mentioned with the other 2. I think continuity and longevity in this position would certainly help drive and push policy and procedures forward. I also think from a management level, this position needs to easily be able to make the hard decisions without the potential concern for losing votes if an employee who works for the town and lives in the town doesn't agree. I've certainly seen examples of this in my time and with previous selectmen. I also believe we would have more effective management of departments by eliminating some of these boards and commissions. So I'm interested in hearing what everybody's initial thoughts are, and I did send you an outline from the town attorney of how we would get there come November. That was our decision. So anybody wants to start off with some conversation there?
I think it makes sense. Your rationale, if I understand it, your rationale is that whether it be the town clerk or whether it be first selectman or whether it be a tax collector, that we don't know who we're getting and whether they have the qualifications and the training necessary to perform.
Yeah, qualifications are definitely the top one, but accountability too.
Yeah. I guess my suggestion is, in the past, I've been through at least 3 or 4 charter revisions, and it was clear the people on the charter revisions did not want to talk about, at least first selectmen. They wanted that position to stay. There was not much discussion about town manager. I spoke at every commission in the last 25 years or whatever about a town manager. So I would just say, if we're gonna put this together, let's make a citizens charter revision committee that's broadly based.
Well, Jerry, you were on the last charter. I mean, maybe you could give us a little insight how that was.
So my thoughts would be, so it's only been a short time since the last charter revision. I do think that where there's a significant amount of time between revisions, things have a tendency to pile up, and you end up with the voters being asked to do a lot of things. I'm personally not in favor of going to a town manager. Once you go down that route, you don't turn back. gives up the voters' ability to let folks know what they think about their elected officials. And so for that reason, I think that the first selectman, that ought to remain in place. The accountability for the town clerk and tax collector is a little bit different. I think that by making those folks paid employees rather than elected positions, I think that that probably makes sense. It's something that was considered in the past, and there was just too many other things with a higher priority that needed focus. I think we've got good people there, but we need to think in terms of succession planning, what's going to be happening down the line. I think that if we narrowed the focus of a charter revision, that would make sense.
Can you clarify, it's every 5 years we're supposed to do it?
Well, we're required allegedly to do it every 5 years. The town hasn't always done it every 5 years.
But that's the benchmark. Huh?
Right.
And from your experience, when you started to when you finished, how long did that take, approximately?
In that particular situation, it took over a year, okay? But there was a lot of things that group was looking at, okay? So if we kept the focus of a proposed charter revision narrowly focused, that might be something that could move more quickly, and also the end result would be, instead of having 14 or 16 or 12 or however many questions, it could be, 7 or less, 5.
This is Kathy Harrington. I would suggest that I'm in favor of us doing it now. I think waiting too long to the 5 years just does, things pile up. And with the last one, we had so many questions. It was on the back side. People thought the questions were too long. Some of the last ones didn't even get voted on. I don't even know if people turned it over. So I agree with trying to kind of stay on track. I would add the treasurer position to that as well, to consider making it a paid full-time, not full-time, but paid position as opposed to elected. I
In
kind
other words,
of,
hired rather than.
I'm sorry,
elected,
hired,
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you, thank you.
That's right, I
I'm
said the
mixing up
same
my
thing.
words. I'm not certain where I stand on the first selectman town manager. I do think more accountability and qualifications. I personally was disappointed with the last charter revision that we didn't get it to 4 years, because I just thought that would be a kind of a good compromise in there. But I think maybe having the commission look at it again is still a good idea. I'm not certain where I fall, but so maybe for those 4 positions, and just limiting it to that would be good.
Jack, we can narrow that focus, right? Saying
Yes.
these 4 and all these. Okay.
But-
Yeah. So, yes, I mean, the Board of Selectmen, as the appointing authority, is charged with charging the Charter Revision Commission. So you can say, Charter Revision Commission, we're appointing you for a term of X number of months, and we'd ask you to look at these 3 issues, right? But that does not limit the scope of their inquiry or the scope of their recommendations. So they can literally go into every aspect that they choose to, and come back and make those recommendations. Before those go to the voters, those of you who were around the last time will recall that they have to come back to you. They have to present it. There's requirements for a certain number of public hearings that need to be held. And ultimately, the Board of Selectmen decides what to forward on to the voters. So, Mel mentioned some of the past charter revision commissions, and we had charter revision commissions who made recommendations about things like a town manager that did not get forwarded to the voters. The last Charter Revision Commission, had many more recommendations and tried to narrow it to, I think it was 18 or something absurd like that.
So hard.
But a lot of those revisions were very important, and a lot of them did pass, is the other side. So, it is a difficult process. The other thing I would mention is that charter revision has become sort of a specialized service. So there are, available like consultants. I think Connecticut Conference of Municipalities has a charter revision section that can, you know, they can hire people and bring people on to assist with those things. And I only bring that up because I know that the amount of time that goes into it is substantial. And would just say that you have to be careful trying to make this a November deadline here. I mean, it's very, very tight. So I would just, you know, and I did try to lay out in the recommending document, you know, just sort of a basic timeline, and this is very similar to what we've given the Board of Selectmen in 2020. It's tight.
We're already behind a month.
Yeah, and we're already behind it, so.
So would there be a fee for a consultant?
Yes, yep. And that's the other thing I would say is that traditionally, the budget set by the town has included additional funds for charter revision when we have done charter revision, because it is
Okay.
pretty manpower intensive.
Do you know how much the cost was last time?
I think there was $15,000 put into the budget.
But I don't know that it was used.
I think it
Sorry,
mostly
Jerry.
mostly went for legal fees.
Jerry didn't know if it got used though,
Right.
but Derek is saying you think it was,
Yeah, I think it was mostly for legal fees.
for legal fees.
And the last commission was 2020, Jerry?
Correct.
Began in 2020. Right.
So it's been 4 years since
Well,
the
but
last one?
It was voted
it
21.
voted in 2021.
Okay.
So
okay.
the fall.
So it took maybe 15, 17 months, something like that. Which I don't know that it has to. The other thing I wanted to say, just for clarity, with respect to Selectman Chaffetz's comments, the last charter revision did consider the town manager form of government. It just didn't have adequate support.
What was the reason for like not having this?
Oh, gosh.
Do you recall?
I don't answer for you. I guess I am. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jerry, go ahead.
I think that the reasons that are offered to support going to a town manager form of government, people didn't feel assured enough that they were comfortable that those things would actually come to fruition here. And then the other part of it is I think that people on that charter revision, while there were some folks that clearly thought that it's something that the town should consider, there was general agreement that the people in the town just have demonstrated that they're not interested in going that route. So they didn't, as the council indicated, there had in the past been a charter revision that recommended going to a town manager that, you know, didn't go forward.
And I would just add to that, because I was along for the ride. I thought that the 4-year was proposed term for the first selectman and the board of selectmen. It wasn't just the first.
Right.
With a separate vote.
I think that was seen, I remember the last few discussions, I think that was seen as a compromise to, you know, or a stepping stone. I believe a couple members actually voted for it, saying it was a stepping stone to get to a town manager. Number one, and two, I remember one member in particular being very concerned about the cost involved with competitive salaries for
Sure.
a town manager. Because a lot of work was done interviewing a number of former first selectmen, other people who were town managers. There was a lot of data that was gathered with respect to you know, what comparable towns were paying those positions. So it seemed to me, you know, again, as a observer of the whole thing, that was really meant to be a stepping stone of a compromise to get us there eventually, so.
And if I can follow up on that, my thought would be, so that charter revision was voted on at the time that the town was holding elections. That may not have been the best time to have the town vote on a charter revision,
Yeah.
because different
Yeah.
assumptions were made, I think.
But you made a good point. I
It
forgot
happens.
how many items were on,
Yeah, I think it was 14.
Too many, yeah.
Yeah,
you know, to keeping it to a more critical number.
right, that's what, I mean,
But the other point I want to make is, people have used the argument about salary and that you can't get rid of the person, you know, that once they get appointed. And I just use school superintendents as an example, because they're comparable.
It is.
We average about 5 years here, 4 years lifespan of a superintendent. I've seen him come, I've seen him go. Town managers is no different. Enfield just got rid of theirs, other towns have gotten rid of theirs, others keep them for a long time because they do a good job. So you get both sides of that. Salary-wise, this is a business. I mean, the budget's what, 20 million, 25 million?
The town side? 18?
I'm sorry,
18?
18. And how many employees on
140.
the town side?
140.
I mean, that's a relatively reasonable sized business. No business would ever do it without a CEO or somebody to run the business. You know, so I've always had that concern about every 2 years we have an election. And I realized that 4 years was a sort of a compromise. I think the reaction to that was, we gotta live with this first selectman for 4 years. So it's both sides of the coin.
People, what are your thoughts on the
I'm in favor of town manager, but I think that a lot of the resistance comes from, it's the way we, you know, the mentality, I think, is we've always done it that way and we don't like change. But also, if you do a town manager, usually you lose the fire commission, the police commission, park and rec. I think those three for sure, and there might be more.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And so that eliminates people's involvement in town and they want to have a say in how things go. And, you know, but it is I think it's a more professional way of running government. But this is kind of, this meeting is, you know, is difficult as it is. This is what small town government's about, and it's you know, it's kind of what the country's founded on, you know,
Right.
that people get to come up and voice their concerns, whereas, you know, the downside of a town manager is, you know, he wouldn't be here, it would be a mayor form of government, and maybe he would come to a meeting, maybe he wouldn't, you know, but I think it's a more professional, I think a town manager is a more professional way of running the government. So, but I think it's a, you know, I thought, for some reason I thought charter revision was a couple of years ago, but I agree, we should probably get the committee together and go forward with that.
At least for consideration on two of the positions, right? Are in agreement with that?
Well, put Paul them on, have them look into it. But again, the problem is, we could give them 4 items to look at, they might come back with 15, and you're right, Jerry, ideally you want to have it done in the next election.
Yeah.
In November, because then there's another municipal election, and then it looks like you're, you know, that.
I think that a thing that would potentially limit them from considering lots of extras is if they're on a deadline where the idea is for this to go to the voters in November, there's only so many things they can look at.
Yeah, the one other thing I wanted to point out is it does not have to be tied to a regular election. So you can have a special election for it. If you do it at a special election, there is a threshold of 15% of the electorate has to turn out in order for, for passage to be effective. So it can't just be the majority. You also have a threshold of voters who need to turn out. I happened to see the registrar emailed out the numbers from yesterday. It was like 9 point something percent of Democrats who voted in the primary, and I think it was maybe 9.1, it was 9.3 or something of Republicans. So, for a non-controversial presidential primary, I guess is probably a good way to say it, we would have cleared that threshold. So, you know, the sort of best example in the alternative is I think in the late 90s and early 2000s, Hartford voted 5 times before they got enough people out to cross that
That
threshold.
would be my concern.
So,
Right. And there's a cost.
Right.
and there is a cost, yeah, for sure. And whether or not, I don't know the answer to that, about whether or not early voting would apply to that as well. I have no idea what the answer to that is. So I need to look into that as well.
I think Ellington recently, within the last 2-3 years, went to a town manager. But I think what they did was they did a transition, if I recall. They kept the first selectman for a couple of years, and they moved into a town manager, even though they approved it. They didn't just go from one day to the next. They had a transitional period to
Yeah.
make it easier.
I don't know about that one specifically, but I believe that we heard about towns that transitioned in that way
Yeah.
during the charter revision last time. So there's a bunch of there's 169 towns in Connecticut. I can't remember what percentage of them have town managers, but everyone who had didn't start that way. So there's a lot of different ways it's been transitioned into it.
Well, just stop for initial discussion, bring it back up next few meetings, see what you guys' thoughts are.
Okay.
Something to think about. Moving on to item 11, discussion
Well,
of.
before you move on, I would just I would for sure put it on the next agenda, because
Okay.
if we don't, to Jerry's point, if we don't start
Yeah.
soon, we're gonna run out of time real quick.
Okay, thanks. Item number 11 is discussion of blight ordinance.
You know what I would say, Mr. First Selectman, is we're coming up on 10 of 9. I would move that we just table the discussion of the blight ordinance, just so we can move along.
Yeah, I mean, we have some things considered, right? Is anyone against that?
I mean, Derek said he would look into a few items on it, correct, so.
Yeah.
Report back to us.
I'll do that before the next.
That was a motion?
Yes.
All right, motion has been made. Is there any further
I
discussion?
just have a question. Do we have to go to a town meeting on the blight?
We
Yes.
do.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item number 12 is selectmen updates. Budget update for you guys. Just over a month ago, I presented you guys with a budget of about 2.68. As we've progressed through the process with the Board of Finance, we've made some minor changes. There's some savings that currently put us at just over the 2% mark, and with some insurance adjustments, we expect it to be just around 1% increase for the town side budget. So I want to thank the Board of Finance for all the hard work they do. It's a lot of Mondays, and I know how much effort these guys put into it, so thank you to them. Work on the cold storage building has started, so that's right across the street from the CVS. You guys probably see foundation work being done. Structural engineers finally coming out to Babs next week, so hopefully we'll have an update for you guys on the potential cost of the pavilion project there. I think we need to have a discussion on the Bridge Street property due to the ARPA funds that we committed $305,000 to. We need to figure out by 2024 how they're being appropriated, and I'm not sure we have an exact plan. So I'll bring that up for the next meeting. I just want to give you guys a heads up there. Engineering work continues on our lot zip projects. In case you guys forgot, those things take a while. So Kent Ave, Farmington Canal Trail, and Bridge Street, along with the Windsor Locks Canal Trail. It looks like we'll probably get Farmington Canal Trail. That'll be the first project we start in the next year or two. Quarry Road feels like the project that never ends, but never gets started either. So we are finally going out to bid over the spring and summer, with work starting next spring officially. And interviews are currently ongoing for candidates for both the library director position and associate library director. And we also have some good candidates for the finance director position, and those start in the next couple of weeks. Do you guys have anything you guys would like to share?
I just have a question. Courtney gave us up to 950,000, something like that. Is there a timeline when it has to start, when we have to start using it?
I'll have to check into that. I know there's a way we have to go get it, so WPCA is going to be working on that. Anyone else? All right, moving on to item 13 is public comment. Start in the room. We'll keep this to 2 minutes, and Is there any public comment in the room?
I'm Joan from Suffield. I just wanted to say, I thought it'd be a really big mistake to change to a manager form of government. And you get farther away from the people in reality. It's just a very bad move.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment in the room? Ms. Franzik, all I ask is that you keep the 2 minutes. Please.
Sure, I'd be happy to. You know, I was really hoping my comments would send the message that, above all, I'm concerned about the persistent division within our town. That was my overarching message. And I think I made it clear that I was not speaking as a representative of any group. I was speaking as a mother and as a private citizen of Suffield. I was not involved or aware of any of the details around the Library Commission, the Democratic Town Committee. I am not on the committee. I was bothered, however, by Colin's use of the word fringe to identify the group. That bothered me, especially when you're talking about those people who can be marginalized. Kathy, I'm certainly very sorry for you for having been mistreated, threatened, or potentially suffered the loss of your job over this. That's untenable and horrible. And Mr. Murphy, I'm certainly not seeking an apology from anybody for my son being gay. My family's very lucky. My son is doing very, very well. And thank God he's doing well. Not all gay kids are. And Mr. Murphy, I know I see you in Dunkin' Donuts. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you sometime.
I'd love to tell you my story.
Yeah.
My family.
Okay.
My sister. So this is nothing new, do you know what I mean, to me. So
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
talk. We'll catch
Yeah,
up.
that would be great,
I think we
'cause
got a lot to share.
I know, sure, that'd be perfect. All righty, that's what this is all about. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment in the room?
Just a brief question, am I correct that the superintendent of schools is leaving? Nothing was mentioned of it earlier, I had heard that.
That is correct.
Okay, do we know when?
The Office of Board of Education.
Okay, because I know they started up, or they're gonna start up a search committee. Second thing for the town attorney, in addition to thinking about how you wanna let people know that submitted resumes can be requested under FOIA, any email to the town on a topic can be requested. So maybe that's a more generic piece of information that ought to be on the website, just to say, if you contact the town, generally speaking, if it's by email or letter, I believe that can be requested. You have to be careful in how you request things, but, you know, it's not just resumes, that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gordon.
Neil Hornish, Thurl Avenue. Just want to comment during the meeting, Selectman Harrington, you made a comment saying that my wife and I were laughing at the idea of you being fired. That is not correct. We were not laughing at that. We were responding to what we thought was the kind of ridiculous interpretation of the DTC comments. And I'm not here to try and change anyone's mind about, you know, how you interpret it is how you interpret it. But we were not laughing at the thought of you losing your job.
I'll just state for the record that every time that Selectman Mahoney mentioned that Sue Irwin asked that I be disciplined or fired, you both smiled and laughed. That's why I said it. And if you were laughing about something else, I'm just telling you what the appearance was from up here.
Okay.
Is there any other public comment in the room? All right, moving on. Is there any public comment on Zoom? I see one hand raised. I just don't know who it is. It says it up in attendees. Yes, cool. All right, Ms. Hespel.
Tracy Hespel, 875 Copper Hill Road. I'm sorry I couldn't make it in person tonight, but I did just want to, you know, raise my support for Kathy Harrington. I've worked with her for many years on various projects around town. For a while, it seemed like we were the girl power for a little while. And her moral compass and her integrity she's always taken the high road in anything I've ever done with her. She's always been a huge supporter of anyone's quest that they were trying to achieve. And the fact that someone intentionally tried to attack her character and impact her livelihood is appalling to me. And I just wanted to give my support to Kathy and know that the people who have worked with you know who you are. And I'm glad to see you sitting there and defending yourself against something you shouldn't ever have to defend yourself on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.